Hi, it's Kristen. Welcome to my quilts in review for 2022. I hope you're all having a great holiday. This is just a roundup of all the quilts I've made this year. You'll find links in the description to other videos about these quilts, plus blog posts, tutorials, all that kind of stuff. First up, what I've called my worst quilt ever. It was basically a combination of denim and orphan blocks, and there's a whole other video about it if you want to hear the story, but not my finest hour. Next up was a baby quilt, an Spy Quilt for my new baby niece who was born at the end of February. It's a simple raw edge applique using fussy cut scraps, essentially. She uses it as a playmat, and my nephew, who's about 5 years older than her, uses it to sort of point and play that I Spy game as well. So it was kind of a fun quilt for all ages, and there's another video tutorial all about how to make it. The next quilt I did was a large wall hanging in support of the Ukraine. I used Ukrainian quilt pattern designer Alexandra Derinovska's foundation paper pieced heart block as the center, and then the border is some free FPP heart blocks that I have available on my website. I just changed the colors to the Ukrainian flag colors. You'll find a link in the description to Sasha's Quilts on Etsy, which is Alexandra's shop. I have this wall hanging still up in my window, put it up obviously when the war was relatively new, hoping that it would all end and I could take it down, but it's fading in the sun there. And yeah, it's just still such a sad situation. Super quick make that's gotten a lot of use in our house is this Stroller Quilt. It attaches to the stroller with Velcro straps. It's super cozy for the little one, and it's probably one of the most functional things I've made. There's a video tutorial about it, and it's linked to in the description. I was having a run of baby quilts at this point in the year. This was another one for a friend in Canada. It's a simple 9-patch quilt in a week. I had lots of intentions of doing loads of these quilt in a week videos, and this is a reminder that I didn't do them. So I might do some more this year because it was definitely a fun, quick make, and there is a video tutorial and a blog post that shows you how to do it. This was what I'm calling my Triangle Madness quilt. It was a quilt made without a pattern, but starting with an AccuQuilt triangle die, kind of as the improv starting point. I really liked how it turned out. I used double batting for this one, and I do have another video all about the process and how I kind of approach making a quilt without a pattern. Next were my Kids' Choice Stash Buster quilts, basically 2 quilts that I made for my 2 sons. They chose the colors, they chose all the fabric, they made some other choices along the way too. The yellow and blue ones for my oldest son, including some rocket ship quilting detail I tried to add in, and then the purple and green one was for my youngest son with the Tula Pink cats in it. I've got another video again about how I approached all of that and why I was doing it to basically try and get the kids interested in sewing even before they maybe had the patience to make something big like this on their own. This quilt is by far my favorite quilt of the year. This is my Denim and Quilting Scraps Quilt As You Go quilt. I've got 2 videos, one about making the blocks and one about how to construct the quilt. It's so lovely and soft. I love a denim quilt, and it was just so much fun to put together. So I'll put those links in the description for you. So this is actually my oldest son's first quilt. It was a collaboration because he's 5, but he did piece most of the quilt top himself, and he directed everything else, including creating the stitch that I used to quilt it with in the FAF 720 stitch creator. There is a hilarious tutorial of him basically impersonating Jenny Doan in one of my quilting vlogs. I'll put it in the description because he was totally into Missouri Star triple play videos when we were making this quilt. So that's worth checking out. This was a quick stash buster quilt that I made when I was trying to clear out my sewing room and use up some fabric that I didn't love. It's a charity quilt for Quilts for Care Leavers, and I talk about it in my 12 Stash Buster projects video. This next quilt is also in that Stash Busters video. It's basically a massive orphan block quilt that I gave to my husband, clearing out all of those orphan blocks and also testing a new quilt as you go method. So it was, it's a heavy, heavy beast, but my husband likes it and I learned loads making it. The next quilt I made this year was this. It was using my new favorite quilt as you go method. It's another baby quilt. Everyone was having babies this year. And I did 2 videos on this. So one all about how I made this particular quilt and the method I used. It's basically a serger quilt, but with a bit of an adaptation because I don't have a serger. And then I made a follow-up video because there were questions all about how you use the same method for blocks and rows. So hopefully you'll enjoy those videos if you haven't seen them already. And now we've got to the point in the year where I made my big purchase, a Moxie long arm. And then this is the first quilt I made on it. I was basically testing out all different kinds of free motion quilting patterns to see what I liked and, you know, what I needed to learn. And I really actually like the quilt, even though it was sort of more of a practice exercise. I like how it turned out. And there is a video all about it with the link in the description as well. Next was another largish wall hanging. It was based on my friend's logo. This is the logo. And it was my first ever collage quilt. And I loved making it. It was so much fun. It made a huge mess. And I've got a whole video about the process that I followed, which was kind of learn as you go, I guess. But it really turned out well. And I see it every time I talk to her on Zoom because she has it on her background, which was kind of what it was for. Now this next one, even if you are the most devoted subscriber, you will not have seen because there's not been a video about this one yet. This is a quilt that I gave to my 5-year-old nephew for his Christmas present. He is super into trains. He knows what this train is on the big panel. So this is my first ever panel quilt. And I used a whole bunch of half square triangles to kind of set it off. And then I also added some smaller little train details, sort of cut out from other fabrics that he could sort of find on the front. I was so chuffed with this. I did this on the Moxie as well. When I turned it over and I could actually see the scene in the panel on the back, which is hilarious. I'm sure that pleased me so much. But basically, I'd outlined all of the details in the panel. So I was pleased when I turned it over and I could actually see what the picture was. I will probably do a video about this in future. But anyway, it went over well and he really seems to like it. So I'm pleased. My last finish of the year was my weight loss quilt. I spoke about that in my video last week. I was just so pleased to get this done before the end of the year so that I could move on to other projects. If you don't know what the weight loss quilt is, there'll be a link to the whole weight loss quilt playlist in the description. I hope you enjoyed my quilts in review for the year, and if you've been a loyal subscriber, thanks so much for all your support this year. If you want to see more really cool quilts and an even longer trunk show, then go and check out The Guy Who Sews. He's done this massive trunk show with 22 content creators, and I took part in it with my Denim and Scraps quilt, so I'll put a link to that in the description as well. If you've not subscribed to my channel already, please do. Thanks so much for spending time with me. I'd love to hear what you think about any of the quilts. And I'm looking forward to seeing you for the Scrap Busters Sew Along in January if you are taking part in that.